We're just a few days shy of the 1-year anniversary of the Breonna Taylor incident in Louisville, which of course was a prelude to the George Floyd incident and, in combination with George, was the ostensible justification for a summer and beyond of the most destructive and costly rioting this country's ever seen. And while Derek Chauvin's trial in the George Floyd case is just getting underway this week, the legal strings in Breonna Taylor's case are all but tied up. Last fall, a grand jury opted not to charge the police officers involved, other than one of them for wanton endangerment for a recklessly fired round shot from the outside of the apartment, though that was not a round that struck Breonna or anybody else. The officer who shot her after being fired upon was let go by Louisville PD earlier in the year. Kenneth Walker, Breonna's boyfriend who fired on police first that night, will not face any charges either. The case against him was dismissed this week, and while there is a remaining federal civil rights investigation in the case that could conclude as soon as May, I wouldn't expect anything to come of it criminally. These investigations generally haven't produced criminal charges in the past, and I don't see strong evidence of a civil rights violation or a racial bias motive in this case. But just because the justification for criminal charges may not be there, doesn't mean the justification to keep wrecking uninvolved people's lives and property won't continue. In fact, it'll probably worsen. No justice, no peace, the chant goes, and justice in that context doesn't mean due process. It doesn't mean what the law prescribes. It doesn't even mean what the facts support. It just means whatever the mob wants. And this week, the mob wanted to have their vengeance on the real culprits of the Breonna Taylor murder, as they see it. No, not the cops who raided the apartment that night. No, not Breonna's boyfriend who shot first. No, not Breonna's drug dealer ex-boyfriend whose drug dealing operation was the entire basis for this whole event. The real killers are, who else? A bunch of school-age girls and their families walking the streets of Louisville on a sunny spring day. Now, in fairness, maybe this mob of Black Lives Matter agitators wouldn't actually argue that these young girls are directly responsible for Breonna Taylor's death. But they do argue that the mob has to intervene and harass them because these kids are receiving opportunity that Breonna's hypothetical kids never will.
They are protesting near the cheerleading competition hotel, and the message that has been put out is that children who are cheering have an opportunity that is not extended to the children of Breonna Taylor because she will not be able to have children because she's dead.
This scene is outside the hotel for families participating in a state cheerleading competition at the Kentucky Convention Center on Saturday. As these girls and their families passed by this mob of agitators, they were accosted for their white privilege.
The reason why you get to be here in these pretty gorgeous outfits, your gorgeous hair, your gorgeous gown, is because of your white privilege. Breonna is dead. Black mothers are burying their babies while white mothers are going to cheer competitions.
Even if I grant that premise, which I don't, who is causing that burial? And by that, I of course mean that these stats are clearly just more institutional racism, and these stats are just very empowered decisions with no moral implications whatsoever. Praise and blessings be upon Planned Parenthood, Susan. These agitators shouted profane hostilities toward police in front of the families.
No justice! No peace! Fuck these racist police! Fuck 12!
And they had similar things to say to the parents, too. And all of this harassment is perfectly justified, of course, because Breonna died.
Breonna is dead. Breonna is dead. You didn't know if your child protest. I don't care if they're kids. Breonna was somebody's child. Right. Breonna was somebody's child.
So you're saying it's not our protest. If you don't like it, take the kids upstairs into the hotel room and shut the door.
See, random passersby have at least some responsibility in Breonna Taylor's death and need to be held accountable. But not Breonna herself. She had nothing to do with it. Her choice to be involved with a drug dealer's criminal operation, nothing to do with it. Her choice to rent a car for that guy to dispose of dead bodies with prior, nothing to do with it. Her boyfriend's choice to shoot at cops first, nothing to do with it. Now, am I saying that she deserved death? No. I am saying that she made several choices that drastically increased its likelihood, choices that were far more consequential than anybody else's, but especially randos on the street. And even if Breonna's death was unjustified, how does that justify further abuse? Breonna's dead is just the mindlessly shouted catch-all justification here. But how far does the logic of that justification extend? Can I rob a store as long as I shout, Breonna's dead, when they catch me with a trench coat full of merchandise? Can I kill a guy as long as I shout, Breonna's dead, when they show up to arrest me? Should Derek Chauvin plead Breonna's dead at trial? And if he does, is he off the hook? It's not a magic safe word. If just droning Breonna's dead doesn't justify any of these scenarios, why does it justify harassing kids? It doesn't, of course, but we can obscure that logical void with further contradiction. This mob leader, Carmen Jones, insists that nobody else gets to tell her what to do.
You don't get to tell us how to run our liberation. You don't get to tell a black woman how to do nothing in this.
But also, she gets to tell everyone else what to do.
Do something black today with your white
Here it
privilege
is.
besides cheer. Do something black today with your white privilege besides cheer.
And Carmen doesn't argue with terrorists.
I don't argue with terrorists. I don't argue with terrorists.
But Carmen does make terroristic demands.
We're no longer asking you to see that our lives matter. We are now demanding it. We're demanding that you see that my life matters. If you don't want to see that my life matters, get beat up. It's that simple.
Carmen knows that everyone else is a terrible parent.
Grow up and be better than your parents. Grow up and be better than your grandparents. Grow up and be like the white people out here with me. Don't grow up and be like the parents.
While Carmen plans to raise her kids to be violent.
I'm gonna raise my kids to beat you up.
There is no logic to this game of Carmen Says, and Carmen says don't ask any questions anyway. Questions are against the rules of the game. But just in case you had any lingering sympathy for Carmen, just in case you still think maybe the emotion of the moment got the best of her and she didn't think through what she was saying, she appeared on local news later to confirm she stands by her every word.
Protest leader Carmen M. Jones says she stands by the words she spoke over the megaphone.
Yes, I did tell them, don't be somebody who my child is going to have to fight. Because right now, I'm fighting the grandchildren, the great-grandchildren of people's ancestors who didn't do right, who did. So if black kids are children enough and child enough and mature enough to go through the things that we go through as children, then their children are children enough, child enough, and mature enough to learn about their privilege.
As sick as her treatment of other people's kids is, her treatment of her own is even sicker, at least insofar as it'll have longer, more damaging consequences. And I don't even know if she actually has kids or if she's just speaking hypothetically here. But beyond everything else insufferable in this case, attacking children, repeated dumb talking points at odds with the facts, casually threatening people on the street, getting away with it, and still thinking that it's everybody else who has privilege. Beyond all of that, imagine believing that the best way to take care of your kids is by trying to control the entire world outside of them. It is not possible to control the entire world out there. And even if it was, every minute spent trying to manage the entire world's chaos is a minute not spent building order in your own home. And a child might have difficulty with the chaotic world out there, sure. But a child has no chance if that chaos is in the home first. Even if Carmen's premise was true, the entire world is racist, which it isn't, what's a more realistic solution? Trying to control the entire world's racism, or teaching your kids that while there may be challenges in life, those challenges can be overcome with proper attitude, proper work ethic, and proper home support structure? Because I assume, Carmen, there must have been some way that young black girls participated in this cheerleading competition. You can see them walking into the venue, and you can see black judges on the event's roster too. How did they get in there? It's either that the world isn't as racist as you say, or even if it is, it's that these people put in the work to overcome the challenge, and now their kids have the same opportunities as the white girls that you say are impossible. While you were busy shouting at the world to change, they remained focused on their own houses instead, and look who has the benefits to show for it. That's a lesson not just for Carmen, but for the rest of us too. And just to keep things even, the mob does have a lesson for us as well. There was a subtle moment in the live stream of this event that's revealing of the mob's thinking. The woman streaming appreciates a dog for not asking any questions.
I want to talk to you for a minute because you're so beautiful. You don't ask questions. You just behave. You're a good girl.
I like dogs because they simply do what I say and they never question an order. That's why I like them way more than the people here with their pesky curiosity and their thoughts for themselves and their slight pushback in response to the abuse of their children. In other words, they want to treat you like this dog. You will obey or you will be put down. That's their view. Politeness in that context doesn't earn you any favor. It only earns the same abuse.
But we're with it. I agree. Black lives matter. That's right. Black lives matter, right? Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am. And we appreciate you. Tell your kids that. Make sure your kids aren't somebody my kids are going to have to beat up.
No, I don't think I will. I think I'll raise my kids to be skilled and prepared so that you regret it the second you ever even try. Thanks as always for listening and for supporting this channel. Always appreciate that thoughtful discussion down below, and especially over on Minds, that is at ML Christiansen. You're always welcome to coming out and chat in my live streams. Those are linked down in the description. Looking forward to it. Goodbye.